Brother, I think we got there. Excuse me. Just like the chat is up and working. Oh, I can start a poll. What a doofus. Imagine knowing how to do this. I've only been doing this for like 3 years. So for everybody that doesn't know, I'm Chris. Most of you should know me by now. First of all, before we dig into anything, I want to thank all the new subscribers. We've jumped up quite a bit, like 20 or 30 in the last month. So a big shout out to all of you. Thank you for subscribing. I appreciate it. I've decided that I'm not going to run a Patreon. I'm not going to run any kind of, I'm not going to take any ad revenue. I'm going to continue doing this for free because really I just want this to be fun and more hobby centric. And if I'm constantly worrying about making money off of it, then I feel like it adds stress to it. So the only thing I'll ever really ask is make sure you like the video, make sure you subscribe. It does help me out just because it gets more eyes on it, and then that in turn it does help pay me, but like I said, I don't have to stress. I'm not like, "Oh my gosh, I'm making money." So that's it. That's all I wanted to say on that. Sorry, something caught my eye and it just kind of like derailed everything. Everything says it's working. So if you're watching and something's not working, like if you're not getting audio or anything, make sure you let me know. I guess you couldn't. Anyway, brother, it's been a weekend. So for those that don't know, I went to an old world tournament this weekend. This is the first tournament I've actually gotten to go to. I've attempted to go to multiple tournaments, but every time I've gone, something has happened. We've had multiple drops at events where there was one event we had 10 or 12 players and only 2 showed up. There was another event where there was about 16 to 18 players and only 3 showed up. So it's been really rough, and I haven't gotten to play as much Old World as I want because the community just hasn't come together. I've played a few games against my buddy John. I've played a couple games against my buddy Garrett, and that's been a very limited experience for me just because I haven't been able to play the way I want to play. So there was a big tournament this weekend. I will start by talking about my list, and then we'll talk about the tournament itself. But the first thing I wanted to do before we dig into my list or the tournament recap is I want to thank the TO. His name's Gary. He ran a phenomenal event. It was very, very scheduled. It was on time. The player base was generally really good and friendly. They were very welcoming. My daughter came with me. She wanted to give the game a try. For those that know, she goes to firefight events with me as well. So, you know, she's been to different events with me. She's 14. She'll be 15 here pretty soon. And they were very welcoming to both of us. You know, 2 people that most of them had never met before. And for me to just show up with my daughter, my kid, you know, it was very nice for them to just be accommodating to that and make sure she got matched up against players who were going to make sure she had a good time. I will say big shout out to her because she did win Best Sportsman. And while I don't think it was rigged, I'm sure the players that played with her voted for her. You know, I don't think it was rigged, though. I don't think they were just like, give her this. I very much think that they genuinely enjoyed playing with her, and I think she enjoyed playing with them. And I do appreciate that. That means a lot to me because that tells me I can come back and I can bring her back and we can have a good time. And it makes it easier for me to get to tournaments when I can bring her. So, or my son for that matter. But, you know, again, I just wanted to thank the whole player base and the TO. Gary, you did a great job. I appreciate you, buddy. You did fantastic. And I do appreciate the way you made sure she had a good time. Thank you so much. Now, I'm an elf player. That's just the way it is. Every game I've played, I basically have played elves. I play wood elves in Old World. I played Warhammer Fantasy in 5th, 6th, and 7th. And I had 2.5 to 3 armies throughout that time. But the consistent one was wood elves. There was Bretonnians early on, and then there was Skaven later. But elves have always been the consistent, like, this is what I do. I love them. I love the trees. I love the aesthetic. Everything about them. It's the bee's knees. I like the way they play. It is the ultimate glass cannon in theory. It doesn't always work that way, but that's kind of a balancing issue, and that one doesn't really chap my caboose at all. But we're going to talk about the list, man. I went into it with some concepts in mind. I had a couple of really hard-hitting units to be my scalpels. I don't like to use the word hammer because hammer implies that they smash things. Scalpel means that they're a bit more surgical. And that's really what they are, is they're scalpels. Because, you know, a hammer can withstand some of that blow. Whereas a scalpel, man, if it gets hit too hard, it's going to break. So I had a couple scalpel units. I had a couple anvil units. I guess we could just call them the operating table if we're going to keep this analogy going. And we're going to dig into how it all kind of mesh, work together, what I would change now that I've played. I went into this tournament having never played a single, maybe one match play game. I played it with John on stream. That's my only real experience with the match play. So I went into it with almost no experience. Just kind of made a list, said, okay, hopefully this works. And for the most part, it did. So let's dig in. First, we had a Glade Lord, and I was going to pull up the PDF, but it was too hard for my old eyes to read. So we're going to do it like this. I have a Glade Lord. He's got the Befuddlement of Mischiefs, and he's on an Elven Steed, and he's got the Spirit Twilight. And rather than opening everything up, I'm just going to give you a breakdown on what it does and what the intent is. The Befuddlement of Mischiefs is I pick one unit in engagement range. It gets -1 initiative, -1 weapon skill. And I believe he's weapon skill 7. So that's going to knock most things down to him hitting on 3s. You know, the only thing it wouldn't is if it's another character that's like weapon skill 8, for example. So that is really handy. Knocking things down 1 weapon skill and 1 initiative because, you know, he's an elf. He's initiative, I think it's 5. He does have fight first. But at the same time, you know, the unit he's attached to is not fight first. I believe they're initiative 5, and then they get the elven reflexes. So the first round of combat, they get +1 initiative. Initiative 6, if I'm knocking you down in initiative, that means there's not a lot in this game that's going to fight before them unless it has fight first. And that's kind of where my thinking was with that. He's got, what is he? He's got some other, oh no, my phone. He's got some other stuff. So I guess we will open it up a bit. He's got the Spear of Twilight. Maybe that's all he's got. Oh, he's got the Wild Rider Kindred, because I had to take that in order to put him in with Wild Riders, which gives him Countercharge, Frenzy, Furious Charge, blah, 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 blah. All the stuff that Wild Riders get. It makes him a Wild Rider. So he went on a steed. I know a lot of people were like, we should have put him with a stag, and I probably should have, but I didn't have a stag. I had a steed, so he went on a steed. He went on the steed. He went in the unit, and whoo! Yeah, we're going to dive into that after we go through the whole list, because we're going to talk about what kind of blender that was. I had a Shadow Dancer. She's got the spear, which gives her, I think it's +1 strength, -1 AP. Yep. And then she's strength 4, so she fights at strength 5. And that was the big thing. You know, because the rest of the Shadow or War Dancers just had double hand weapons, which again we'll get into. And she's a level 1 wizard, and really I never rolled for it. I just gave her hammer hands because I needed her to be a torpedo. And my thinking was like, if I just give her hammer hands, she's going to just get extra attacks if the spell goes off. And then if she makes the charge and gets hammer hand, she's going to get 6 attacks plus 2d3 strength 4 attacks. And it just made sense in my head because those were my scalpel units, the Shadow Dancers and the Wild Riders. I did bring a Spell Singer. She's level 2. She had an aspect of the Hound, so her unit will reroll hit rolls of 1. It might have done something else. I don't know. It was really just for the rerolling hit rolls of 1. She went with some Rangers, and we'll kind of dig into that too. Actually, we'll dig into that in a little bit, because there was a reason she went with the Rangers. Because I gave her high magic, and at level 2, she got to roll for some spells, and was able to consistently get some decent spells. All right. So now we've got 2 units of Deepwood Scouts. They both had True Flight arrows. If I were to do this over again, I'd probably just take 1 unit of Scouts. Although 2 units was fine. There was nothing wrong with it. The problem I ran into overall, and we'll kind of dig into this again, like I said later, is I just didn't have enough scoring units because everything was unit strength 10. I didn't have anything that was unit strength higher so that if it took damage, it could still hold objectives, and that's okay. I would probably drop my scouts down to 1 unit and then buff my other units up with those points left over, or even take another unit, but you get what I'm saying. I had a unit of 4 treekin. Those were kind of like my quote-unquote anvil unit. Like, they were my main anvil unit. The dryads also kind of served as an anvil unit. The Glade Guard had arcane bodkins, and my thinking behind that was like, if there was a hill in or around my deployment zone, I could march them onto the hill, and then they could just sit and throw AP2 arrows the whole game. And then wounds of 6 were AP3 because of Armor Bane. So again, they were fine. I think there was only 1 game in which they didn't live. And we'll talk about that when we kind of go through my recap itself. Let's see. And then, War Dancers, like I said, there's 10 of them. 1 had a standard. Forgot I had a standard. That's okay. I don't think I gave him or her a magic standard. I didn't. I had meant to. I didn't do it. That's okay. But 1 had a standard. And then everybody had double hand weapons, right? And if you know what War Dancers do, there's a reason I built them the way I did. I was like, I could give them 2 hand... Like, I could give them spears. But the spears are just kind of like... I don't know. I'd rather throw more dice. Because the throwing spear doesn't have any AP, but it does give you fight and extra rank if you charge. So I don't have to get a massive front rank to get everybody charging. But the thing there was just like, I don't care. Like, I'm going to try to make sure the Shadow Dancer gets in every time. And then if everybody else can get in, everybody else can get in. Like, I'd rather roll lots of dice. I don't care about the extra rank support attacks. I care about who I can get in the front rank to get all of those attacks. Because they get 1 attack, and then they get an additional attack for their hand weapon, then they get an additional attack for Furious Charge, and then 1 additional for Frenzy. So they're swinging 4 dice on a charge if they can get into base contact. That's kind of why I was just like, we're just going to roll a lot of dice. And then you have a few different dances you can pick from, right? You can take -1 to hit rolls against people that attack you. You can take increase, and this one is very important. The wording on it is exceptionally important. And here's why. Let's pull them up. Until the end of this combat phase, the AP characteristic of its weapons is improved by 2. It doesn't set it at 2, it improves it by 2. And that's important because the Shadow Dancer gets the dances. So the Shadow Dancer spear being AP1 now goes to AP3 with this dance in effect, and she fights at strength 5. So she's, in effect, an elf with a greatsword with 6 attacks that fights first, and just like throws a bunch of nasty dice at strength 5, neg 3. You can give them a 4-up ward, and then -1 to hit, and then, or you can give them extra attacks. And there's times where you want any one of those. There was times, I think the only one I didn't use was extra attacks this tournament, and that had a lot more to do with my matchups than anything else. So, War Dancers. My big unit of Wild Riders, they have the Totem of Wrath, and that is amazing. If you make a charge, you get an additional AP, and you get reroll wound rolls of 1. And then Wild Riders fight at strength 4. And then their Hunting Spear puts them to 5. They're neg 2, so if they charge, they become neg 3. So you get 1 attack, Furious Charge, Frenzy, 3 attacks per model in base contact that are fighting at weapon skill 5, but remember, you're going to be -1 to your weapon skill because of the Glade Lord's befuddlement. So they're going to hit a lot of stuff on 3s. So you're going to have the 4 in the front rank, because the wizard, or yeah, because the Glade Lord's in there also. But the 4 in the front rank are going to throw 3, 6, 9, plus 4 is 13 dice, because you get the sergeant, the unit leader. So it's 13 dice that are in most situations going to hit on 3s. And then strength 5, in most situations, unless you set them into like a monster, in most situations they're going to wound on 3s, sometimes 2s, but they're still going to re-roll 1s. And it's all AP3. And it was just like, this just seems too good not to use. Like, this is silly. So really, I took 10 of them. And really, the reason I took 10 wasn't to, like, have a wider formation. It was because I knew they were going to die. I knew people would target them with shooting and try to plink them with arrows and things like that. So I wanted those extra wounds to keep them alive. And that's really what it was about. And then my Wildwood Rangers. And the Rangers had the Monster Hunter's Tapestry, which shuts off stomp attacks. So if I get into something like a giant squig, colossal squig, whatever they're called, or a giant, or anything like a bone dragon, I can turn off your stomp attacks, which really shuts down the amount of damage they can take. And the reason I put the Spell Singer in there, now that we've gotten to here, with high magic, there's one spell in particular. There's actually 2 really good spells in there for them. One of them is they get extra attacks, which I think I ended up rolling every game. And then the other one is they become ethereal, which I ended up rolling 2 of the games I played. Now, the ethereal one, it does go off on a 10, so it's really hard to make it happen. But it is, when it goes off, it is awesome, because it gives them ethereal, and it gives them a reserve move, which isn't necessarily, like, crazy good. It's really the ethereal I'm after. So, now that we've kind of gone through the list and we see what my scoring units are and things like that, now we'll kind of talk about the rounds and the missions and those types of things. Round 1, I played against Orcs and Goblins guy. I'm not gonna mention anybody else's name, but dude was super nice. Had a great time with him. I let him know, like, hey man, I've played like one match play game. I haven't really played a lot in the last 6 months to a year. I'm gonna be a little rusty. I'm going to try not to be slow. And he was like, oh, it's cool. Super nice dude. Had a great time with him. And you could tell, like, I was not in that competitive play mindset, because we got into, like, turn 2, I think it was, and we realized, so this one had the objectives on the battlefield. And we never set them up. So, like, we realized that. We looked at each other, and we were, I think, at the bottom of 2. Like, already one player had moved and stuff. And he was just like, oh, we didn't set this up. And I was like, oh. And he's like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, buddy, I don't care. We can just kill each other if that's what you want to do. Like, I am having a good time. Whatever you want to do, I'm fine with. And so that's what we did. We just killed each other. And it was a lot of fun. He ended up getting, I think, like a minor victory. It was like very, very few points for our margin of victory, because it's, for the scoring, it's kind of weird. If you've never done an old world tournament, you get victory points, but then you get tournament points, and then you get objective points. And there's like a system in which they all kind of correlate together to get your final score. So your victory points are based off of different things you do. Like, maybe like your kill points determine your victory points in every mission, right? Like, how many units did you kill? Did you do this? Did you do that? So, and then once you get your victory points, you look at the difference in victory points, and that gives you your margin of victory. And then that tells you how many tournament points you get. So if the margin of victory is only like 50, for example, like if I kill 950 points worth of stuff and you kill 900, that's close enough that that's considered a draw, and we get the same amount of tournament points. And then different things can also give you more tournament points, etc. I'm not going to get into it because it varies by mission also. So we're not going to do this detailed breakdown. We're just going to talk about, like, overall, that's how it works. And I think we had baggage trains in that one also. And really, it came down to, I think, kill points for him. He killed more of my stuff to get a minor victory. We both killed each other's baggage train. And so, like, I don't know the exact points because I don't have it all logged in my phone right now. But it was, like, I don't know. We'll call it 11-7 was the total difference in points, which is pretty good. Like, I can't complain. First tournament game in Old World ever. Can't complain. Had a great time. We got done. Just bullshitted for a little bit. He was a fantastic dude. My daughter was at the table next to me playing another fantastic dude who was very patient with her and just an exceptional human, and I really appreciate that. So, again, good time. So then round 2 came up, and so also Old World placings are based off of your points, not your record, which is something that I have to kind of like retrain my brain on. And if you're winning, you're probably going to get more points. But it becomes important for this story and for this recap because round 1, because we didn't set those other objectives up, like, we robbed each other of points. So, like, we actually, like, neutered each other's placings because we would have been able to score more points by sitting. One other thing about the round 1 that was hilarious. So, round 1, I ended up getting the extra attacks. No. I definitely got the ethereal spell. I don't remember if I got the extra attack spell. But round 1, I got the ethereal spell, casted it, got my ethereal off, 1 turn the whole game. And it was hilarious because, like, every time it would go off, he was able to dispel it. And it was really funny. But it did go off 1 turn, charged into his giant, and they just, like, wrecked that giant. As they should. Because if you cause fear terror, they get an additional attack, and they go to multi-wound 2, so their weapons are 2 damage. So they just, like, wreck shop. They get in there and they just decimate things. That happened, and he saw that, and his only other unit that caused fear or terror was his Wyvern. And he was like, oh, I don't want anything to do with that. So he spent, like, the last turn or 2 just running away from my Rangers to keep them from killing him. And it was such a funny reaction and interaction. And part of it was because, like, he knew that if the ethereal spell went off, he was going to be very limited on how much damage he could actually do to them. Because it's going to shut off the Wyvern attacks, basically. The Wyvern wouldn't also get its stomp attacks. So the only thing he'd be relying on is just his rider, because he had a magic weapon. And then, in addition to that, I think, like, my initiative was high enough that he had to really, like, make sure he had a huge charge. He wasn't going to be able to just, like, 1 or 2 inch charge me. Otherwise, we're just doing simultaneous damage. So it was just one of those things where it was super funny. My Glade Lord, so I think it was turn 2. It might have even been turn 1, because he brought his boar boys up, and because of Frenzy, I had to charge. Like, they were in range. And I made it, and then they lifted. It was a brick of boar boys. Like, I think it was 10 or 11, and they killed them all. And it was just like, oh my god. And he was just like, what the fuck? But then he immediately, like, walked into him with a couple of Boingrots. I forget what they're actually called in Old World, but they're the Boingrot squigs in AOS. Walked into him with a unit of those and lifted basically the whole unit. My general rallied and then went on to just, like, harass all these other units. Like, he went into all these different units, charging for the rest of the game and just, like, massacring things. Just through the sheer volume of attacks that he got and stuff. So, again, super funny. Had a great time. Overall, it was a very silly game with a lot of ups and downs. Then we get to round 2. Now, round 2, I'm, like, kind of more into the mindset of, okay, I need to pay attention to the objectives, do this, make sure I'm scoring. I did not have fun. And it was not I'm sure he's a nice human, but he was not fun to play against. There's a dude that does YouTube videos, or probably Facebook, whatever. And it's like the stereotypical, like, fedora sword cane dude, you know, like, very, and it is this human that I played against, like, 100%. Like, I'm sure there's a word for it, and this is part of the reason I don't want to bring up names, because I'm not going to sit here and just talk dog shit on this dude. Because, again, I'm sure he's a nice enough person, but he was just, like, kind of awkward, and, you know, my biggest complaint was that he was slow. And this, again, becomes relevant. So in this mission, there was no secondaries. It was just kill points. And then there's an objective in the middle of the board. And then it's whoever has a core unit, you score points for controlling the objective. And then at the end of each battle round, the objective scatters. So if you've ever played Servo Skulls for 40k, it's kind of a similar setup, except the objective moves randomly rather than getting punted. You know. And it's a fine mission. It just, if you're going to use it at a tournament, it needs a secondary scoring objective, I think, because of the random movement of the center objective. And here's where it becomes an issue. So he got first turn, which is fine. I don't care. He got first turn. And actually, son of a bitch, I think I ended up winning that game. And that's okay. This is where I need to know how to score things and how to control objectives. And I'll kind of circle back to that, why I just had that epiphany. So, what ends up happening is he sprints some dwarves out, and they get on the objective. He immediately scores turn 1, which is fine. I sprint dryads out, and dryads move 12. I can get them, like, on the objective. And I just now realized that the person who's closest controls the objective, not who has more unit strength. Oh, sorry about that. So I would have controlled that objective turn 1 and gotten bonus points. And that would have given me a victory. And I'll get into that in a minute, because this is all kind of correlating. This is my fault. I should have known this stuff, and it would have given me more points. That being said, at the end of the battle round, the objective literally scatters, like, behind his dwarves. And I just, like, looked down at that, looked at him. I was like, well, I guess I'm just going to have to kill all of these dwarves then, aren't I? And he was like, do you think you can do that? And I'm not even playing. Like, that is almost exactly how he was. Like, do you really think you can? And I was just like, buddy, we're going to find out together. Like, let's find out. So, I think it was turn 2. He had a Demon Slayer, and the Demon Slayer wasn't in a unit. He was just a standalone Demon Slayer. And it was up in a corner, and I deployed some scouts outside of range of him. But I figured, I'll just shoot it. And if I kill him, I kill him. I don't care. Excuse me. But I can just keep moving and shooting him. Makes no matter to me, because it's just kill points at that point. But I also had my War Dancers. So there was this funnel created from my forest. Sorry, I forgot where my camera was. A funnel where I created with my forest was here, and there was like a building here, and there was just this little funnel here, and then my scouts were in my woods, and then he just started moving towards that funnel. Well, turn 2, he's in charge range, but it's long charge. Like, he needs a 5 or a 6 on the die. He fails that charge, moves forward 2, but because of where my War Dancers were positioned, because they had marched 10 inches up, it's a very makeable charge for my War Dancers. Like, basically, if I get a 3 on the die, my Shadow Dancer's getting in. And that should be all I need. And I think he had already lost 1 wound from my scouts just plinking him with bullshit shots. So I charge him, And I think I got a 3. Like, I got one model into base contact. Everybody else just kind of chained in base to base. Like, so I just had this one long line. So only one model got to fight. And I'm not even playing. Bro was like, I think you've made a mistake. I'm like, is this real? Like I'm trying to decide if he's fucking with me or if he's being serious the whole time. And I was just like, maybe, man, I don't know. And so I'm just like, okay, bro. And trust me, like, if you've ever played against me at a tournament, you will know I'm a clown. Like, I will sit there and joke and laugh and have fun. But I was genuinely confused playing against this guy because I couldn't tell if he was, like, serious. Because there was no, like, up or down or anything. It was just like, this is who he is. So I'm just like, maybe, man. And he's like, do you think your one model can kill my dwarf? And I was like I said, buddy, we're going to find out together. And the reason I think he's serious is because of what happened. And I'll tell you in a second. So I make the charge. I get up there. I take the rest of my turn. I'm sprinting Wild Riders up the other side of the board so that I can start flanking his cannon. Because he's got a cannon and he's got a rock thrower. And of course, they all have magical attacks and flaming attacks. Because why wouldn't they? And I fucking hate dwarves. And again, if you've watched this channel for a while, you know that I literally have no love for dwarves in any game I've ever played. I just don't like them. Sorry, Kevin. You know who you are. I love you, buddy. But like, I like you. I just don't like dwarves. So I charge in, and I've been plinking his cannon with bows every turn. Hey, what's up, homie? We're doing a little tournament recap. Some Wood Elf action from Old World. Big shout out to Proxy Hammer. If you like Eldar, check his channel out. So he literally is just like, you've made a mistake. Do you think your elf can kill me? And like this shit is legit. Yeah, right? It is a grudge. And I was just like, maybe, buddy, we're going to find out. I take the rest of my turn. I've got his cannon down to like 1 wound because I just keep plinking it with arrows. So I activate the Shadow Dancer and I'm like, cool, she's going to hammer hands. And he's like, I have magic resistance too. And I'm like, cool. And I end up like getting boxcars or something silly. And I'm like, well, it goes off. Hammer hands knocks him down to 1 wound. And then I start counting out dice. And he's like, only 1 model gets to fight. And I was like, yeah, she's got 4 base attacks plus Furious Charge plus Frenzy, 6 attacks. And he's like, well, I'm weapon skill 7. And I'm like, cool, she's weapon skill 8. I'm going to hit you on 3s. And this is why I think the whole time he's been serious. Because you can just watch his whole, like the color drain and everything when he realizes she's about to shit in his mouth. So I roll my 6 dice, I get like 5 hits, and he's like, well, he's T4. And I'm like, cool, she's strength 5, and she's AP 1. Boom. And he doesn't have a save, so you can just pick him up. And that's exactly what happens. She just annihilates him. And I genuinely don't know why he thought that Demon Slayer was going to live through my Shadow Singer. Like, I really don't. Or Shadow Dancer. Like, I was really confused by this. And I don't know if this is like, yeah, dude, I'm telling you, like, I don't know if you've ever seen it. I literally can't watch it because it just makes me want to punch this guy. But there's a guy on YouTube that does, like, silly, they're supposed to be, like, satirical videos where he's got, like, a cane and a fedora and he's very, like, overly, like, don't worry, I will save you. And he's, like, kind of got that, like, that energy. And that's exactly what this guy reminded me of. And like I said, like, at first I thought he was just fucking with me. And then, like I said, as the game progressed, I realized I think that's just him. So I roll my overrun. I am able to get them all on the other side of another wood feature, so they can't be shot off the table by his thunderers, which I'm thankful for. So he takes his turn. I then sprint them into the woods. And I'm just like, cool, I'm just chilling. Because now if he wants to shoot me, it's going to be cover. They're skirmish. He's got a turn. So he's got the quick turn penalty, or the move and shoot penalty. So I'm going to knock him to -3. He's going to have to, like, it's going to be poopy. Well, so like multiple times, so we get to turn 3, and multiple times, and again, if you've played against me, you know, like I talk a lot when we play because like I verbally go through modifiers and stuff because I want to make sure I don't miss anything. I want to make sure you don't miss anything. So I'm like, all right, cool, man. Like if I'm shooting my bows, all right, I'm gonna shoot there. I've got long range. I moved, so I'm gonna be -2. I'm gonna go from hitting on 3s to hitting on 5s. Like I literally talk through everything I do because I want to make sure we're both on the same page. And if I forget something, which there were games where I did, you know, the Bretonian dude was just like, well, these have -1 to hit because of a spell. So because I'm talking through it, he's able to remind me before I start rolling dice, hey, I also have this spell. That's why I do it. So dude's like going through and he's like, all right, my Thunderers are going to pivot. They're going to shoot. And I'm like, all right. So like they move, they shoot, they're -1. And then like I'm talking through it with him and he's like, well, they're Dwarven Expeditionary Force. And I'm like, okay. And again, this is like the 3rd or 4th time he said this to me. But I don't know what that means. And I keep waiting for an explanation. But given the energy that he's presenting, I have no idea. Like, I seriously think dude's just fucking like, they're dwarves. Okay. Like, cool, man. So finally, he goes to shoot my war dancers, and I'm like, so they're like -3, and he's like, they're Dwarven Expeditionary, whatever it is. And I was like, all right, buddy, I'm going to stop you. You keep saying that like it should mean something to me, but I keep hearing it as literally a fucking verbal salad. I need you to tell me what that means. And then he was like, oh, and then he had to look it up. Oh my fucking God. So he tells me it's, you can move and shoot, but you don't get the overwatch. So like quick shot, you ignore the penalty for moving and shooting, and you can always stand and shoot when you're charged. Because normally you can't stand and shoot if the unit is closer to you than its movement. Right? But what the rule he's referencing does is it just ignores the move and shoot penalty. So I'm like, all right, well, they're -2. They're going to hit on 6s. That's fine. He kills a war dancer, right? Like, that's fine. They're still going to come in and they're still going to do what they're going to do. Because I'm not very far from him at this point. Like, after he pivots, I'm probably 4 inches from his unit. And I'm in trees, so I get my cover. So I'm like, all right, bro. He goes through his turn. I've now charged some miners he had in the back with wild riders. I kill all the miners. I restrain. I pivot. I'm now staring down his trebuchet or whatever it is and his cannon. We're going into turn 4. I charge. Bottom of 4 or bottom of 3. Anyway. My last turn, right, I charge into his Thunderers. I get everything into base contact. Because he's got, like, I rolled like a 6 and a 6 on my charge roll. They've got a 5-inch movement, so each model can move 11 inches. I don't take a penalty for moving through terrain because I move through cover. So I've got a Shadow Dancer and 9 War Dancers in base combat because he's got a rank of 9. He's got 18 models and it's 9x2, right? And he literally is just like, well, these boys have an armor save. I don't think you'll be able to kill them. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you, man. We're going to find out. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to increase all the AP on all their weapons by 2. And he's like, okay. So they're going to be AP 2. The Shadow Dancer is going to go to AP 3. And he's like, all right. In addition to that, and I start counting out my attacks. Like, here's my 9. Here's the one for the unit leader. They all have an additional hand weapon, so they all get an additional attack. They all have... Yeah, dude, War Dancers fucking slap, dude. I love them so much. So I'm like, they all get an additional attack. They got Furious Charge. They got Frenzy. So it's 4 times 9 is 36 dice plus the Shadow Dancer, which is another 6. So it's 42 dice coming out of this unit. And you could, again, he was just like the drain. Hammer Hands went off again, killed 1 or 2 models. I got done fighting. It was literally a character and like 2 models left. And he was just like, oh. And he did snake eyes his leadership there. Like, he did make that, so they didn't get to die, but then I just got to pursue right back into him. And he was just like, Jesus Christ. And I was like, yeah. My treekin had been slowly grinding down the warriors that he had sitting on the objective there. So, like, they're down to literally 3 models. So we get to turn 4. This is my last turn because he's slow. And we'll talk about the slowness in a minute. He's got 3 warriors and 2 characters in that unit. So they no longer hold that objective. But he does have Thunderers that haven't been touched yet. So they're still controlling it. So literally the only thing he has left on the table is a unit of Thunderers that has like 2 models and a character, a unit of Warriors that has 2 models and 2 characters, a unit of Thunderers that hasn't been touched, a trebuchet, and a cannon with 1 wound. That's it. We get done, and that's all he's got. We get to turn 4, and we've got enough time, because there's nothing left on the board for him. We've got enough time that we can get through another battle round. But the TO did say not to start another battle round. And I was like, I think we could do another one. And he was like, well, the TO said to stop. And I looked at Gary. I was like, Gary, can we do another one? And he was like, no, go ahead and stop. And I don't know Gary. Like, I've never went to any of his events. So I'm not going to, like, try to ask him, like, come on, come look at this board state real quick. So I just accepted it. Because he controlled the objectives, it gave him 400 extra victory points. And what ended up happening was, by turn 4, I had killed about 1,000 points of his army. He had literally killed, in kill points, he had killed 228. That was 1 dead unit and 1 unit under 50%. And all, like, my turn 5, he's losing the rest of those Thunderers. He's losing the rest of those Warriors and the 2 characters. And he's losing at least the cannon, but most likely the cannon and the rock thrower. To where he's only going to have a unit of Thunderers on the table. So turn 5, I'm killing enough that, like, it shuts down his ability to do anything. Yeah, dude. It's one of those, like, but the problem was, like I said, that he was slow. And not just, like he was having to look up a lot of weird things. Like, he'd be like, all right, I'm going to fight you on strength 4. And I'm like, all right, I'm T3. And he'd have to, like, pull up the chart. And I'm like, bro, you're wounding me on 3s. Oh, okay. Like, that type of slow. It was super weird. Like having to look up all these weird little things. And I don't mind that he had to look them up. I don't even mind that we didn't finish the game. My complaint is it wasn't even fun to play against. Like, if you're gonna be slow, at least be fun. Right? Like don't be not fun and slow, because that's just a super bad experience. But that's why I realized, like, there was a turn I actually controlled that objective, and then I would have had not only those extra points, because you get victory points, you get 100 victory points, but then you also get, at the end of the battle round, if you control it, you get an additional objective point, which gets tacked on. So what would have happened was our points differential would have been big enough that I would have had a bigger win, a bigger margin of victory, which would have given me, right? A bigger margin of victory, which would have given me more tournament points. And then holding it at the end of the battle round would have given me 1 more objective point. And that actually would have put me ahead of him. So it's one of those things where it's like, now that I see what that's my fault. I'm not upset by that at all. That's my fault. But now that I know that I would have had it, it's like, okay, that actually would have made a difference. And now I need to remember that. Dude, I've played Wood Elves forever. I love them. I love that they haven't changed a ton from fantasy to this. And they're a blast, man. If you are patient, they are a lot of fun. If you are not patient, you are going to get frustrated very quickly. So then we go into my 3rd round matchup. And that dude was a great time. He was a lot of fun. He played Bretonians. He didn't really have any Pegasus Knights. It was a lot of regular Knights, and that was another round where I got the extra attacks on my Rangers. So Rangers just got the mulch Knights. And that's the downside of, and I'm going to toot my own horn a little bit. That's the downside of, like, me coming into a tournament and then, like, losing the first 2 rounds. I'm going to get put at a table that I don't belong at. And that's nothing against him. He's a skilled enough player. Like, his positioning was fine. He played well. But I am not... I play enough games that I'm not going to come in last place, right? So if I end up losing the first 2 rounds and then I get paired into, like, somebody who also lost 2 rounds, chances are our skill gap is going to be huge. And that's exactly what it was, man. There was a lot of positioning issues. Like, he just got out-positioned, out-maneuvered, all kinds of stuff. And, you know, it was like 25% break was the mission. I did. And honestly, I did look at who he got paired against, because that's likely who I would have played had we, like, flipped and I ended up winning. And that being said, like, I'm pretty confident I walk away with that game also, because it was an Empire list. And I don't think it was a lot of steam tanks and stuff. You know, so I think I'm able to still just outmaneuver, outposition. But I maybe don't win the way I did. Because it was like a 17-1, 16-1 win, where it was just like, that dude scored no points other than he got my baggage train. And then I don't think he killed a single unit. Like, I don't think he killed one whole unit. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that's the other thing is Wood Elves are a tough matchup if there's a skill gap, because of how they interact. You know, the amount of people who were just blown away at the efficiency of my Wild Riders were just like, oh my God. I think right now the Wild Riders are probably the best thing we have in terms of damage, because of the volume of dice they can throw, the efficiency you can add into them, the fact that you can put the noble in there for even more efficiency. He had the spear to wound everything on 3s. So when he charges, he's weapon skill 7, you're -1 weapon skill. He's going to fight first, so he's weapon skill 10 plus all the other bullshit. You're going to have -1 initiative, so he's going to fight before you. He gets bonus attacks on the charge, because he gets Frenzy and he gets the other thing. So he's going to get 6 attacks. 6 attacks on the charge. He's going to hit on 3s in 99% of situations, or 2s even. And then he wounds literally everything in the game on 3s. And then he gets extra AP, so it's like -3, and he's going to reroll wound rolls of 1. So it's like, that whole unit is so hyper efficient at killing things that it's like insanely good, but it's also so hyper efficient at dying that if you're not careful with them, they're not going to get into where they need to get into. Because they just have, like, light armor. I think you could take a shield, and then they have a 6-up ward. So, like, if somebody shoots at you with literally anything, you're going to pick up a model or 2, which is why, like I said, I ran the unit of 10 instead of, like, 2 units of 5 or something like that, because I wanted the ablative wounds in case people did try to shoot at them. And then, you know, they're basically just war dancers on horses, is really the best way to, like, explain it to somebody who doesn't know. Is they're war dancers on horses. The difference are war dancers get more attacks and less AP. The horses are higher strength, slightly higher AP, less attacks. I say slightly higher because you can do an AP buff on the war dancers. And you can do an AP buff on the Wild Riders. So overall, man, like, I have no complaints. Some things I would tweak is, the main thing is, like, I just need better scoring units. I needed to bring bigger scoring units, so I would probably drop a unit of scouts and then buff all my other units aside from the unit of scouts. Like, bring 1 unit of scouts and then buff the Dryads and Glade Guard to 15, and then if I have enough points, bring another 15 of something else, maybe like an Eternal Guard, because the scoring units are super important. with the way that the tournament pack is set up, because you have to have 10 models in the unit in order to control an objective. And for most of the objectives, they have to be core. So it's one of those things where it's like, okay, if I lose one Dryad, it basically can't do anything in terms of scoring. And that's one of those, like, I knew going into the tournament that was the case, because that was an issue that came. Yeah, well, and that's it, is like Dryads are fantastic scoring units. So I would probably run 15 to 20 Dryads in a brick now, because they just got a movement buff. They move 6, you can skirmish formation, so you can sprint them 12. They're insane. Like, they're still not good, but they at least have a role now, whereas before they were bad and didn't have a function. But moving 6, sprinting 12, and being able to just be like, I'm on this objective, and like get across the table. Like, Dryads are really good objective grabbers and objective sitters because they're fairly cheap. Like, honestly, I would almost just drop all my core, bring only Dryads, and then my mandatory Glade Guard, just so I have these fast moving like trees to go sprint out, screen, and things like that. Because that's also what I use Dryads for, is like bubble screens to move, block, and stuff like that. Because, man, when you have Frenzy, if you can see something, you have to charge it, but you can't charge through your own units. So, like, I would bubble screen my Wild Riders with Dryads to block that kind of like charge baiting and stuff like that. And then the Wild Riders are also fast cav, which helps a lot because they're open order fast cav, so they can march and then they can pivot, which is also like insane. I'm telling you, buddy, if you play Wood Elves, just get Wild Riders. You will love them. They are fantastic. Yeah, I could see Rangers being really, really good. Because don't they also ambush too? I could be wrong on that. Or maybe they scout deploy. Because that's why I took the scouts, is that they're skirmish and they're scout deploy. But they're kind of expensive, and I'm not saying they shouldn't be, because it's one of those things where it's like, I get why. We're getting ready to do a league coming up here, and I think there's going to be about 10 of us. And I think for this league, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to figure out how I can make Warhawk Riders feel like they're worth putting on the table, because right now they just kind of feel like crap. And I don't care how many points I have to invest into it. I just want to see if I can at least make them feel like they're good. And I've got a couple different concepts in mind. And they're going to be like a quarter of my army, which is, I guess that's the downside. Because like the Wild Riders with with all the buffs that I had, that was about a quarter of my army. So a very similar interaction. But what I'm looking at is I'm looking at putting a battle standard bearer, and then potentially giving them the quick shot banner so that they can fly their 10 inches and still shoot things. And I think that gives them reserve move also. That sounds right. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe I'm thinking of a spell. I'm thinking of a spell. Like, there's spells to give them reserve move. So I could, in theory, like, if I put a wizard in there and I put the other thing in there, the banner, I can fly them out 10. They can become ethereal and gain reserve move. And then I can shoot. And then I can move them 10 again. So they just become very good harassment units that I can kind of like bounce up the table to go get baggage trains and things like that. Oh yeah. The scouts have move through cover, scout, skirmish. Yeah, they have everything. I think they have fire and flee. I think they're evasive. That's one of those things, like, I've played against people early when we first started playing and just started getting back into it. I was playing against people who would look at my rules and they'd be like, this is bullshit. Like, you have everything. This is so unfair. And then I'm like, okay, but watch. And then they would, like, sneeze and my guys would just die. Because, like, scouts have literally no armor. So anything that hurts them is just a model removed. And that was funny. But the other thing I'm thinking about doing is making them a bit more of a melee threat. So maybe I give them the quick shot arrow so I can just shoot and move while I go. And then maybe give them a banner and then like a hero to kind of like buff their damage output in melee. Because that's, to me, like where they struggle is they don't hit as hard as I feel like they should. But if I put a battle standard bearer in there, give them the totem of wrath, so they reroll wound rolls of 1, and then I put a champion or a character in there and give them the aspect that lets them reroll hit rolls of 1, and maybe like befuddlement of mischiefs. Like, again, it's a lot of points being sunk into a unit that's probably not worth sinking all these points into, because they are still just 1 attack. And this is where, for damage output, Wild Riders are just like, they outshine them for the points, because Wild Riders are throwing 3 dice per model on the charge, whereas like Warhawk Riders are throwing 1 die. You know, so if there's a frenzy banner, I don't know if there's a generic frenzy banner, I could also do that, and that would help a lot. Getting 2 dice would be huge, and I could see doing that instead of the Totem of Wrath, even though the Totem of Wrath is the fucking bee's knees. You get it on a hard-hitting cavalry unit, and it is gross. So, definitely could see that in some, like, what is that? I think that's a generic one, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, that's got to be a generic one. So I'm pretty sure anybody can take the Totem of Wrath. So like a unit of Bretonnian Knights could be pretty nasty with it. Like some Grail Knights. Just out there crumping, dude. Like, gross. But overall, like I said, it was a fantastic tournament. My only real negative interaction was at round 2. And, you know, I'm mostly just kind of salty because not only was he not the most fun person to play with, but he was also slow. If he could have been one or the other, I think it would have been a much, much better vibe. And it never feels good to not finish a game and then lose because you didn't finish a game. Like, that doesn't feel good, especially when it's not your fault. And in some degree, it's my fault because I should have been more mindful of the time, things like that. But now I know. So, oddly enough, give me a second. There's got to be a word for these people, and I can't think of what the word is. Let's see if I can find. See if I can find this dude, man. There's a specific like YouTuber that this guy. He definitely like gives these vibes, and he kind of resembles him. Like if we're being honest, that's probably what we're looking at. Oh, yep, all right, there we go. So like it was just this weird, bizarre thing, and it was just like I said, for a while, like for the first turn or two, I really thought he was just screwing with me. And it wasn't until I saw him like get deflated when that Demon Slayer died that I realized he was all in. Like, this is just him, man. And he just like, yeah, there is. And it's one of those like I said, like I don't want to sit here and like bash the dude. Like, if you're weird, you're weird. I'm fucking weird. I know I'm weird. And like I know I can like be exhausting at a table. I know this. I'm very high energy. Right? Imagine thinking a Demon Slayer is going to live against a Shadow Dancer and some War Dancers. Like, I don't know, man. But like I said, like I know I can be exhausting to play against because I'm high energy, especially at tournaments. Like, I am just a ball of energy. I bounce around, I don't sit down, I'm always moving, I'm just like everywhere. So I am mindful of that. And I even tell people sometimes, like, hey man, look, just to give you the heads up, I'm real high energy. And like, if at any time it gets to be too much, all you got to do is just say, hey man, can you calm down a little bit? Like I am self-aware and mindful enough to have that in me. So I like, in no way am I sitting here saying like I'm better than this dude. It's more just like, it was so weird. It was such a weird reaction and interaction. For him to really think like all these dwarves were going to live through what I was about to do to them. I think he underestimates how much I actually hate dwarves. Like, I'm sorry, buddy. I'm just going to put them in the blender. Uh, if I play against a dwarf player, I don't care if I win or lose. My goal is for neither of us to have fun. like that's where I'm at. Like, okay, this is what you want to play. I'm gonna make you regret bringing that to the table with me, even if I regret it also. I don't care. like that's just the level of human and petty that I am in those situations. So, but yeah, that's it. So we'll have the league. I'll do some league recaps. I do still owe everybody a 40K league recap. I don't think I did that one. I did lose my round. But overall, it was a good experience. I learned, and I had some misplays that were pretty big, but I'll break that down later this week. And I've got a firefight preview coming, so we've got some stuff on deck. And I am working on that Quar battle report, and what's taking so long with that is I've got a lot of animation. I'm actually making a little intro cartoon for that, so that'll be coming soon too. But thanks again for everybody that watched. Again, if you enjoyed it, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. I'll break your kneecap. I'm not in the league. I'm playing Emperor's Children in the league. But I do still have my Dark Eldar. There's a tournament in March that I'll probably play them for. And I'll do a little list preview, and I'll do like a recap on that. I don't expect I'll do great, maybe like 2-1 or 1-2, just because I don't play 40K often enough. And I certainly haven't played Dark Eldar often enough. Emperor's Children's been a lot of fun to kind of dabble with and play. And honestly, having access to Fulgrim and a Keeper of Secrets has made that army just so much fun. Because I'm playing the Demon Soup detachment, so I've got Fulgrim and a Keeper. And man, I've had so many people tell me how bad my list is, but I've lost one game. I've played about 10 games with it, and I've lost one. Yeah, I finally broke down and played Reaper's Wager a bit, and I enjoyed it. It was good. I like the efficiency that it brings to the units. I still think I prefer Sky Splinter Assault's playstyle. I haven't gotten to play Spectacle of Spite, and I'm probably not going to mess with it much, just because I don't want to proxy a bunch of stuff. I just want to kind of put what I have on the table and not have to be like, well, these are Hellions, because I don't have any Hellions anymore. That type of thing. But I think in terms of playstyle, I still prefer Sky Splinter Assault. Like, I like the reactive move and the the move, the transport, disembark, charge interaction. I like that a lot. There's just a lot of things in it I enjoy. Spectacle of Spite? Yeah, I could see that. I can't. I can't imagine it's like that oppressive, but I definitely know that it's strong because I've seen some substandard players get some wins that they definitely shouldn't be getting because of it. And again, like, I'm not knocking anybody. I'm just saying I've seen some pretty low skill players be able to pilot that into some wins. So like, I'm not surprised that it's probably going to get, nerfed, whether the detachment gets nerfed or whether some of the units get some points changes or anything. Hellions look obscene. Honestly, Hellions look good no matter what detachment you run them in right now. So we'll see. I honestly, I don't even pay attention to it anymore, and I haven't in a while. I just kind of like show up, play games. If I win, great. If I lose, oh well. I've just, and I've talked to people about it. Like, I'm not huge on 10th, but I've just gotten to the point where it's like, okay, if I want to play games consistently, I have to play 40K. That's just the nature of the beast. So I just have to say, like, yeah, this game kind of sucks right now. And, that's just the way it is. I can either play games or not play games, and I'd rather play games. I could see myself liking Spectacle of Spite just because, like, Witch Cult is what brought me into Dark Eldar. Like, that is my jam. But I don't have any of it anymore outside of some witches. I sold everything when I first got out of 40K, like, what was that, almost a year and a half, 2 years ago. And when I got my army that I have now, there was no Witch Cult stuff outside of like 20, 30 witches. But I could, like I said, I could see myself doing another Sky Splinter Assault and seeing if I can do a crack at that. I'll probably have to run 2 units of 5 of Scourges. I don't know if I would run the gunboats. I'm real mixed on the Ravagers. They're so swingy. They're so weird. Like, I want to like them, and they are cheaper than Scourges, and they hit on 3s instead of 4, so there's a lot of pluses. But, like, I don't know, man. Just something about Scourges just feels weird. Or not Scourges, Ravagers, so. But that's where I'm going to wrap it up. I appreciate you hanging out. Thanks for chatting, everybody. We will catch up with you later this week.